Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Spitballing podcast. I'm your host Haris Afzal.
And I am Ayush Yadav. And in this episode, we talk about a really interesting thing contracts, quality podcast content.
Yeah,
So basically, we want to get into the esports organization like of video games that we play a lot and we watch others play.
yeah.
And there's a lot of things going on in this whole area and
In this whole space, yeah.
yeah in this
So
whole space.
basically, if you don't know what esports is or what streaming is, we'll just
Yeah.
break it down to you in a bit. So, what streaming is basically people who play video games, put their live stream their video game session and put them on a platform called Twitch. Popularly Twitch. Otherwise,
Yeah.
they also put it on YouTube and other sites as well. So Twitch is the most popular place where they people who watch them can make donations to them and can subscribe to them, which kind of in turn generates money for them, and they become. If you like a really to give you an idea, if you're like a really successful streamer, you can earn anywhere to if you're really good, you can earn even $1 million a year
Yeah.
and stuff in that ballpark. So
Hmm.
it's like a really big space or employment space, and that's employment area,
Yeah.
and it's completely unregulated right now.
And it's very new.
Yeah, it's really new.
Hmm.
Also, and if you don't, and to break down esports, so basically what has started this whole this whole trend of streaming has started another trend called
Yeah.
esports, in which esports has been there for a while now, but it was not on such a big scale and platform earlier.
Yeah.
So now all these streamers, now they compete in competitions on particular games to decide who's the best.
Yeah.
And all these are now really hugely sponsored and hugely watched events because these individual streamers gather in a lot of audiences. So now the prize pools have gotten bigger and the possible earnings are bigger. So now this whole
Basically, it's like your normal sports tournaments, but with video games.
yeah,
And
hence the name esports.
yeah. So to get into it, there are certain players who have been complaining recently, who have been in certain esports organizations, which are teams of sort.
So there are teams who
Yeah.
gather into esports players or competitors, and they bring them bring them deals and
Yeah.
do all the logistics and let the streamers focus on the gaming space. Yeah. So if you're kind of like an actor and you have a manager or an agent who
Yeah.
does all the deals for you,
A PR team.
yeah.
You know.
So an organization is somewhat an esports organization is somewhat like that, and it
Yeah.
does the legal and groundwork for you to let you allow you to focus on the artwork or the
Yeah, the
game sort of.
gameplay. Focus on your game, whatever. And so the whole controversy started from a really popular Twitch streamer called his screen name is Tifu and his real name is Turner Denny. So he's in a esports organization called FaZe, which is one of the biggest
Biggest
organizations, and it's like
It was big even before Tifu was big.
it's the first and right now the only organization which is profitable, which is actually quite a big deal. So he plays Fortnite a lot and he's really good at it. But he was signed for other games like H1Z1, etc.
If you
Yeah.
know about Fortnite, probably the first name that comes to your mind is Ninja. But believe us, Tifu is better than Ninja.
Yeah.
And he's beaten Ninja I guess handful of times.
Yeah. Even Ninja, they have beaten each other. It's like an ongoing thing. So what happened with Tifu is that he was playing normally and suddenly, all of a sudden, he quit streaming for quite a few days and released the statement. Not even him.
His legal team.
legal team released the statement that FaZe has taken up 80% of his earnings, which is a lot. He has made in the ballpark around $15 million in the last year. And out of that, the claim was that FaZe had taken 80%, and FaZe said that they had taken only $60,000.
Yeah. And they've the legal team has come out and sued
Yeah.
FaZe Clan, which is the organization, and on part of the oppressive contract.
And this has become a really big deal with others organizations things
and
happening
and streamers
yeah.
in general, and not only streaming but also like a whole lot of other diverse fields where people come in really young and they're being taken advantage of because
Yeah.
they sign oppressive contracts.
So what's your take on the whole phase and Tfue situation?
Like right now, it's too early for me to form a judgment on who's right and who's wrong on part of like, because we don't have the contract out in public.
No, it was released.
It was released.
Yeah.
I haven't read the contract.
Yeah.
So sorry, I haven't read the contract by now, but so it's really early for me to like make part on it. But as far as I've read, it says that I saw FaZe Bank's video.
Yeah. The
saying
CEO
that-
of FaZe.
Yeah, he's the CEO of FaZe. So yeah, and I saw that he said that they've only taken 60,000,
Yeah.
0 winnings and 0 blah 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 blah.
Hmm.
But I also saw like another article where they said that they could take at any point 80% of his earnings and stuff. So I feel like Tfue is in a sense right to sue them over here, but in a sense then he's
Yeah.
also wrong because he signed that contract.
So personally, like for me, I've been watching FaZe Bank's videos more than I've watched Tfue's videos, which is both in both cases a lot for me. And so I know Banks and like I've seen him a lot. So
And I get the sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you, but I get the point, like what he was trying to say in the video, that he's personally invested a lot
Hmm.
in Tfue's brand, and Tfue wouldn't have been Tfue right now. Like
Yeah.
we can argue that case because like his fame shot up when he joined FaZe, so he was not like FaZe Banks and FaZe. The whole organization has invested a lot into building Tfue up to a point where he's commanding such a big fee and he's getting all this fame and money and all.
I personally think that Tfue would have been there without anyone organizing him or anything like that. But it was his choice. He joined the organization, and sure, like I know Banks,
Like
but I
you
don't
could-
know the
like
whole.
you could see that he would get there eventually, but FaZe actually accelerated it by
Yeah.
giving him the opportunities, because like you say, he was in Fortnite Friday only, like he said he
Yeah.
was in Fortnite Friday only because of FaZe,
Hmm.
and he was a member of FaZe, that's why. So
But there are a lot of streamers who weren't in Fortnite Friday and are like huge right now.
yeah, I get that, but still.
So the thing with the Banks and the Tfue situation is that I personally think that it's very possible that the contract would have been illegal. If it's 1820, it's illegal because California law state that 20% is the maximum any organization can take. So the thing with Banks is that I really think that he pushed him a lot, and obviously Tfue was a kid at that time. So sure, like he signed an ugly contract. Everything makes sense. The things that came after are like could have been handled better by on Tfue's side. Like Cloaksy, the captain of FaZe, also a really good friend of Tfue, has recently he even didn't announce himself. Like FaZe announced that they are about to end the contract and he's leaving FaZe. So that was handled very well by on Cloaksy's side. That he was like, I'll just go with a simple handshake. That sure we couldn't figure things out, but uh, we end things like not in an ugly way, which I think that Tfue did wrong. He went public without
I think-
any warning.
I think the case here was that I feel like Tfue might have mentioned he wants to leave FaZe,
Yeah.
but FaZe were not ready to leave him, like let him go.
But
I think that might be the case. That's why
Yeah.
it turned ugly. Because for me to see like FaZe Banks and Tfue were very close as well.
yeah,
So it could be that he wants like FaZe Banks was thinking about FaZe, because FaZe without Tfue is obviously not as great as FaZe with Tfue is.
yeah.
So could be that as well. Like we don't know the entire scene behind what happened behind closed doors and stuff. But if we were to go by FaZe Banks' statement,
Yeah.
then he had no idea.
And that's what I think. Like, if everyone is like Banks is a good person in general. So the whole organization is not run by banks. There's a whole legal team, a team that makes contracts. But
He's just the face of
yeah,
the organization.
and that's, I was recently watching the No Jumper podcast, and that's what he said, that being a CEO is the worst job. That even if you are not responsible for doing something, you have to figure out how to get out of it. And like in Tifu's case, he's a very passionate guy, so he went on Twitter ranting about stuff. And like, I agree with Tifu in some ways, but not all. And so the point of this whole conversation is that, like, even if you get into ugly contracts, these are contracts. First, don't. Like,
Yeah.
just
The first thing is like even if you're young right now and you feel like you won't have to pay
Yeah.
attention to this issue, at some point of your time you're going to sign a contract because that's how things work in this world of ours.
Yeah.
So you're going to sign a contract for like a part-time job or even like for a permanent job or something. And at that point you should like really pay
Yeah.
detail to it. And if you don't understand some part of it, please go like consult a lawyer.
Yeah.
He'll help you out. He'll charge you a bit, but he'll help you out. And believe me, on like in 10 out of 10 cases, that is like really helpful.
Yeah.
Like knowing the parts of your contract are really helpful.
And especially in like a country like India, esports is non-existent. There are like 5-6 streamers and 5-6 big players who plays in tournaments, and most of them are NRIs. So what happens is, like, it's growing right now, and like most, even my friends, and they play really well, and some might want to start something. So that's why, I just to say that if you are joining an esports organization or even forming one, take your contract seriously. Just do justice to yourself
Yeah. I think
in any way.
this is not just a case for esports.
Yeah.
And that is why I was also like really keen to do this episode. Like this case has been going around all over in areas where a lot of talent is involved. Like if for sure if you're doing like a 9 to 5 job, chances are your contracts are pretty simple and
Yeah.
not shady at all, because they're like contracting you to do work for this and this hour, and
And
they're paying
because
you this much money,
there-
this much leaves, and
There
that.
are a lot of people in that
Yeah,
whole area
in that organization as well.
involved. Yeah.
And now when you come to the talent side of it, it's actually really difficult to quantify what you're actually doing in legal terms, because even if you're sort of a singer, like if you're sort of a singer, musician, if you're sort of
Yeah.
a singer, instrument player, filmmaker, actor, podcasters, or anything, you come under
Yeah.
the broad term of artist. And
Hmm.
laws governing artists and how artist agencies should work are not that clearly
Yeah.
yet concretely defined. So that is why this case of Tifu and Tifu versus Phase is also really important, because it could set precedent.
Yeah.
And a lot of cases could rely on this case to come out of oppressive contracts.
And like, that's also one other thing that I want to talk about. Don't go into like a horde of things. Like, some contracts might be good for others that won't be good for you, or the vice versa. Like in the case of, there's an organization called 100 Thieves, in which Nick Merckx is a really good console player, and he left 100 Thieves and joined FaZe when Tifu left. So for him the contract was good, and they gave him a decent contract, obviously that's why he joined. And instead of Nick Merckx, Courage JD joins 100 Thieves. So all that was like quite weird at that time, because with the whole Tifu thing going on and these exchanges going on. So that's really new and something like people should learn from. That, not saying that FaZe is completely right or completely wrong. It was just not right for Tifu.
It's all relative
Yeah.
if you like pay attention to it. And also, like, when you're signing a contract, like if you're, let's say, 16 year
Yeah.
old, and chances are most likely you'll not have a lot of sense at 16-year-olds. And if a big company comes calling saying you'll make millions of dollars, you'll sign whatever
Yeah.
they give you. So that's where you have to be like cautious. That's where you have to like put things to perspective.
Yeah.
That if they come calling, that means they see talent in me, and if they see talent in me, means that I can grow. And if I am over here right now,
Yeah.
so in 3 years time I can scale up into this. So you have to sign contracts keeping that in mind as well.
Don't underestimate yourself, and
Don't also overestimate yourself.
yeah,
Like
but-
have a realistic sense of where you are and where you can be, and
Yeah.
where, and if you are willing to work that hard to be where you want to be.
And what signing that contract would do for you, also consider this.
Because you can't sign a contract and go back on it that
Yeah.
easily. It's very rare cases that people actually get out of contracts.
Yeah. And it's also not the company's fault, because at the end of the day you signed it. And sure, we cannot, in Tifu's case, people are like in the comments like, you signed it and all that rudeness. There are some illegal contracts and mistakes happen with everyone, but you can learn from those mistakes and just
And I feel like that is also very true for if you're starting endeavors with your friends or people whom you trust a lot.
Yeah.
Like for instance, like Tifu and FaZe over here, they were friends and they trusted each other. Even like that stuff was said by Nick Merckx Nick Merckx as well, when he said that Nate Short and I were really good friends.
Yeah.
Nate Short's the founder and
CEO
of
of 100
Thieves. So he said that we were good friends, and for a long time I did not pay myself as well. And I was invested in his brand where I could whereas I could have gone to other places and like earned a lot. So that's it. Like when you're doing it with your friends as well, you have to be careful and to like not trust someone a lot on the business side of things. Like you should always keep the professional side of things professional.
Like also that's the thing. Maybe Banks is also wrong, because the way Nick Merckx puts it about Nate Short and what Nate Short portrays to be are like two completely different people, which is actually quite weird, because like I've seen Nate Short for a long time, and this is the first time that he has ever been put in a bad light. And also for Banks, like Banks has never been put in a bad light as such. So and they are not the whole esports organization in my opinion. So that's a
And
big
like,
thing.
that's it. When like money comes into play, a lot of heads turn. And
Yeah.
that is what you should be careful of.
Like also maybe, I don't know anything, but maybe Tifu is doing this because he wants to start his own organization or something.
Which has
like
also
that.
been thrown around
Yeah.
by a lot of people. Like they say that he wants to start his own organization and he feels like he's too big for FaZe now.
Yeah.
They say that he's earning way more than any other FaZe member and
And
he wants to take all the spoils.
like that's the thing. The most earnings he has made is from tournaments, which in the official release contracts is not. Like he does not owe them the tournament money. Yeah. And a lot of sponsorships. He says that they were forced, but at the end of the day, he's
getting
just
money.
paying. Yeah. So.
That's kind of our take on the entire issue. And if you like this and if you want more this type of content, please do check out our other episodes.
Yeah.
Do like and like this episode, share it with your friends, and also subscribe. We would love if you hit the bell icon and get notified every Sunday when we upload our posts, upload our episodes. Sorry, and
like this episode was a little complicated, so we'll link some videos down below, as well as just let us know what your take was on the whole situation.
so see you next week, guys. Have a great week. Bye.